2012. So can either side afford to lose the other as a trading partner? Nina Schick is an analyst at Open Europe, which is an independent think tank. Nina, good morning. Thanks for coming in. So it's the result we were expecting. What do you expect the foreign ministers of the EU to talk about today?
Well, already last week, before the referendum went ahead, the EU had made very clear, as did the US, that the referendum would be illegal and further steps would be taken. Now, what we're talking about now is targeted sanctions against individuals. We don't know who those individuals will be, but there are some suggestions that they could be targeted at people close to Putin. However, President Putin himself and the Russian foreign minister will probably not be on that list. We're just talking right now about visa freezes and asset bans, but not economic sanctions on Russia, the country as a whole, which of course would be more harmful to the Russian economy, and not only to the Russian economy, but also due to the links between the EU and Russia to the EU.
Now, the US is saying similar things, isn't it, in terms of sanctions? To what extent does this hurt President Putin?
Well, the US has already taken targeted sanctions on Russian individuals. They've already begun the visa freezes and asset bans. The EU is going to move into that today, I suspect, when the foreign ministers meet in Brussels. So to this extent, it's still largely symbolic. Now, where it would start hurting Russia is if they started hitting some of the oil and gas companies, which, of course, Russia is so dependent on. I would say that in the short term, the EU and the US have, there's a limited amount they can do with regard to sanctions. However, if this becomes a more prolonged conflict, and I think the tipping point would be if Russia decides to move its troops now further into eastern Ukraine. But if it stops short and Crimea is the tipping point, then I think all we would see right now is individual sanctions, targeted sanctions at Russian individuals.
If Russia was not to go further west or into eastern Ukraine and stop at Crimea, do you feel that what Russia's gained is greater in terms of that access to the Black Sea and all that can provide potentially in terms of oil and gas? That's more of a benefit to Russia than the loss of face politically on an international level and, of course, these sanctions of individuals?
Well, of course, Crimea has always been terrifically important to Russia. Historically as well, Crimea has belonged to Russia for many, many years. So, and even the ethnic population is actually majority Russian. So if Russia were allowed to get away with Crimea, so as it were, if it became a de facto Russian state, then Putin would have clearly won in this instance, I believe, yes.
All right. Well, Nina Schick, thank you very much indeed for coming in from Open Europe. We will keep a very close eye on events here, as you know, on BBC World News, and we'll keep you up to date.